Hey everyone, happy Friday! It is finally Friday. I'm so glad to be here with you. I am Robin Weisner. I'm a life coach and the creator of the Lighter Way Wellness Program, which is a whole life wellness program for women in midlife. And this is Lunchtime Nuggets. And today I have every day I've really enjoyed the things we have been talking about here. I'd love to know if there was one that stood out to you. I didn't even get around to what I'm talking about. I want to give people a minute to jump on. I just see someone jumped on. I'd love to know where you're watching from. What's the weather like where you are? It is a rainy day today, and I would love to just go back to bed. But let me know where you're watching from, and let me know if there was an episode this week that really spoke to you. We talked about journaling. We talked about the word before the world. We talked about sleep. And so today, without further ado, we are going to talk about boundaries. How many have read this book by Dr. Henry Cloud, Boundaries? I think I was probably the last Christian woman on the earth that that read it. I had people ask me, have you ever read Boundaries? And I would say, yeah, I read Boundaries in Marriage like 20 years ago, whatever. It was not this book. And obviously, it was perfect timing because reading through it this year was such an eye-opener to me, such a revelation, and it's something that I am going to incorporate into my Lighter Way coaching program, because boundaries are, when we don't have good boundaries, that's when we have issues in every area of our life: relationships, food, finances, self-control, all of those kind of things. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about boundaries today for our lunchtime nuggets. So if you can hear me, give me a little thumbs up or some hearts. Let me know that you're here. And let me just start by explaining, if you're not familiar, what do I mean when I talk about boundaries. I mean, its simplest definition, a boundary is a perimeter. It is a property line. It is a property line. So you can easily use the analogy of your home. You have a property line that is that defines what piece of land belongs to you and what does not, right? It draws that dividing line between you and other areas. Sorry, my messages keep popping up. So so in life, boundaries are intended in this aspect that I want to use it in when we're talking about self-care and stress management. Boundaries help us to define where we end and other people begin, so that we are not crossing over and jumping over the fence and rescuing people with things that they are supposed to be doing. Hey, Mom. Hello. So just like in your yard, right? You have your property lines, you have your fence, right? And that property line or that fence, it helps to keep your dog in your yard and their dogs in their yard, right? It keeps you safe. You know what you're responsible for within your yard. And within your yard, that's your yard. That's your business, as Tabitha Brown would say. If you follow her on Instagram, I am Tabitha Brown. She's amazing, and she always says that because that's my business. But what you do within your property lines is your business. You can grow your garden. You can paint your house. You can decorate. Your neighbor can't tell you that you need to paint your house purple, or that, I guess if you have an HOA, they might have some say. But you know what I mean? Like, what happens within your boundaries is yours. And it's the same in your life. What happens within those boundaries that you've established for yourself, that's yours. People don't get to have a say over that on you. And the same is true for them. So also the thing is about boundaries and these property lines is that it's not a wall. It's not intended for you to be isolated from other people or to not have anyone around you, so you don't have to deal with anyone bumping up against your property lines. It's meant to be permeable. It's meant, you want to be able to leave your yard, right, and go and serve, but it would be based on your boundaries, on your terms. And sometimes you want to open the gate and let people in. But the point is, it's a gate. It's not a fence with gaping holes where wild animals come in and attack your livestock, right? I mean, we know that the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. We have to protect our property lines, but that doesn't mean that we separate ourselves and that we make it like a wall so that no one can come near us. It just means that we have to be clear on what they are, and we uphold them, and then we make wise choices on what we allow in and what we keep out. It's part of our self-care. It's part of our mental well-being, and also it helps. It's really loving your neighbor. It helps other people understand where you stand. There can be a lot of issues, as I have learned, especially when you're raising kids. If your boundary is not firm, if your no is not always a no, then people are going to always be kicking down your gate and coming through and crossing over the line. And it's really hard for you to be taken seriously because you haven't stood firm in that, right? So holding firm to your boundaries protects your well-being, but it also protects other people because they know where they stand. So when it comes to this week, this is the last in the series. We're talking about self-care this week. Today I want to talk about how boundaries can help with your self-care, or 3 things that you can do in regards to that. So number 1, and this is a big one, especially right now, how we're just a couple weeks away from the election. There's so much on social media right now. You can create a healthy boundary of what you watch and what you allow into your feed. So if there are things in your feed that are stealing your joy and disturbing you and crossing over your boundary, you have the right to unfollow, unsubscribe, mute, whatever it takes. There are people that I love very much that I've had to mute, and I don't feel bad about. I love them. I don't like what they're posting. We don't have to fight about it. It doesn't have anything to do with our relationship per se, right? You don't have to engage in every argument that you see on social media. You can scroll on by, or you can just you could just mute, unfollow, whatever. Take control of what you are allowing in. Same is true with what you're watching on TV or what you're listening to. Understand what your boundaries are, what is good and nourishing for your soul. Focus on that and filter the rest out. I think sometimes we just forget that we actually have a choice in that. We just kind of go through life reactionary. So remember that you can just not that you cut off relationships per se, but you know what I mean? Just get it out of your feet. Number 2 is knowing what your boundaries are. This is a hard one if you're an enabler, if you're a recovering people pleaser. And this can be difficult because most people that are people pleasers, they love to help. They love to help because it makes them feel good, because I love people, and it also strokes their ego a little bit, right? So we like to help. We like to reach out and help people when they're in need. But again, like I was saying earlier, there's a problem that comes when you are reaching over into your neighbor's yard. And it's something that, if you start reaching over, this is a crazy idea that just popped into my head. This is not in my notes. But if you have a problem with your neighbor's dog, is pooping all over the yard and it stinks, when you go outside, and you just start going over and picking up the poop for them, guess what? They're going to start enjoying you doing that, right? Unless you have a conversation with them about it. So know what your boundaries are. Know what they are. And sometimes that's hard to know. We might have just been, programmed in that state of mind for as long as we remember that if somebody needs help, then I got to fix it, right? I mean, I'm totally guilty of that so many times. It's been something I'm working on and made a ton of progress this year, but I'll just use, hypothetical example. Say, hey, Dr. Michelle. A lot of this I have learned from Dr. Michelle. She has helped me so much. But say your one of your adult kids needs to move, right? Your reaction when you hear that they need to move, your first reaction might be, if you're like me, is like, oh my gosh, that's going to take all weekend. What weekend are we going to have to do that? Oh, my back's going to be hurting. How is this, blah, 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 right? How are we going to handle this? But that's in his yard. That's not in my yard, right? His or her yard. I'm thinking hypothetically. So we have to understand that, while we are, Galatians 5 says that we are to help carry our brother's burdens. That doesn't mean we pick up all the rocks and the pebbles, right? It's the big boulders that we help them with. So in that same situation, you have to ask yourself, okay, what do I want in this situation? Like, what's my boundary? What feels right to me? And how can I honor what feels good to me, so I'm not doing something out of guilt or obligation or anything other than a pure heart, but also is loving my neighbor, loving this other person, right? So let's think outside of the box. Well, maybe I could help them rent a truck. Maybe I could loan them some money for Packers. Maybe I could give them suggestions of friends that have trucks that they could call, right? I don't know if you guys, this is me. I'm like a problem solver. I try to jump in and do this all the time, but it can be really exhausting. So just taking that time, and it does take time to peel back those layers, after you've had years and years of this kind of reactionary mode, to just stop and think, what is it that the part that I want to take in this? What is my boundary? And what can I do to offer to help that person but still hold my boundary? And then it's up to the other person whether they accept it or not. If they get mad at you or if they don't think it's good enough, that's okay, because you have to honor your boundary, right? We're not about the business of pleasing everyone. All right, you following me so far? How am I doing, Michelle? Okay, and number 3, which kind of ties in with number 2, is that we also have to allow people the freedom to deal with their consequences, and it's kind of all tied into what I was just saying. But this is a big one for me, because when you see people, and maybe you have expertise or you have a way that that you can help that person, but they don't want your help, and you just really want to get in there. If they would just listen to you, or if they would just read this book, or if they would just call this number or whatever, and they and you just really get torn up about that. You have to stop and check, what is your motivation in that? And if you're finding yourself continually stepping over the fence and jumping in and swooping in and just building the bridge up under their feet so they don't have to do anything, you have to stop and ask yourself, what am I afraid of that will happen that I'm not trusting God with? Because, I might be very good at trusting that God will take care of all these things for me, but why am I feeling like I have to play God with this person's life? Why am I feeling like I have to jump over the fence and do this for them? And so when we do that, we're actually robbing them of that opportunity to learn, to experience consequences. Isn't that when we learn the best, is when we fail? If we never failed, I don't know if we would ever learn anything. We have to learn from our mistakes. Each person is born on their own path, and we have to trust that God's got them in their lane. God's got you in your lane. Keep your eyes on the road and trust. And I know that is very often easier said than done. But I guarantee, if you start working on setting healthy boundaries, holding them, practice using them, you will have so much more peace in your life, so much more truth. Christy, another one who's helped me so much. We homeschooled together, and I remember her telling me that discipline is love, or love is discipline, right? We have to be willing to speak the truth in love, and not just constantly be trying to please people and be accepted. So I hope that was helpful. You guys that are on here live, you already know this stuff. You've taught me so much. But I just wanted to share that, because I think it's really, really important when it comes to talking about our mental health. It's Mental Health Awareness Week. Boundaries are huge. They are so huge. I love you too, Christy. Boundaries are huge. And in the business I'm in, where I'm helping women to balance multiple areas of their life, to find food freedom, the same issues a lot of times that are underlying with boundaries with food affect finances, relationships, other areas, right? It's fruit of the Spirit, right? Well, or not having a boundary is not fruit of the Spirit, right? So if you haven't read this book, or even if you have, I recommend you read it again. Oh my gosh, it totally slayed me this year. It's really, really good. And if you don't have time, you can always go on YouTube and look up Dr. Henry Cloud and watch some of his videos there. So, all right, that's a wrap for this week's Lunchtime Nugget. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget that I have opened up my 5-day free group that is soup and self-care. It's here on Facebook. We're going to have self-care tips every day and yummy soup recipes and prizes. There'll be points for taking care of yourself. Yay! And it's not going to be things like take a bath or whatever. It's going to be like, meaty stuff. And I'll be going in there live every day. It won't take more than 10 minutes of your day, but there'll be prizes for participating, and one of the prizes is a 1-hour coaching session with me, and also I'm giving away a couple of my course programs. So if you want to get in on it, enter down below, say I'm in, and I will add you. It's going to be a ton of fun, and I'm really looking forward to it. All right, y'all, I hope you have an awesome weekend. I love you so much. Hold your boundaries. And you know what? Let me know below what your favorite takeaway was from either this or one that you listened to this week. All right. Take care. Love you. Mwah. Peace out.